everybody, John Phillips, Senior Instructor here, and today we're going to go over the 9x7 Frankenstein door. Now I just wanted to give you a little bit of introduction to explain that flow is everything. Some people like to explain it in a little bit of a different flow. That's okay. The point is that we just have flow. So I like to break the system down into 4 different letters. So torsion, T, door, D, track, T, and operator, O. So me personally, I like to explain a door system as D, T, T, O. That's just me though. As long as we stay within that letter and explain it, you can put those letters in any order that you want. The point is that we know the parts, we're able to explain their quality and what they do, and we have good flow that makes sense. That's what we're looking for in the 9x7. So first, we're going to start with our first T of the torsion system. So we have our spring. That's the heart or the muscle of the door. It's all the lifting capacity and the counterbalance. So the way that a torsion spring works is that you twist the spring or put winds on it, and then we set it down with set screws on our torsion tube. The torsion tube is the chassis for the entire torsion system. It's what carries all the parts and makes them work in unison. Now in a spring itself, we have the spring body, we have the winding cone where we can make tension, and we have a stationary cone that holds the tension to the center bracket. Now the center bracket has a bearing inside of it. This is one of the supports that helps the tube rotate throughout it. Now that center bearing bracket is mounted to the spring pad. The spring pad should always be checked for rot, compromise, and cracking since it holds all the tension that's going to lift the door. Now this spring in particular is a max life spring, proprietary to A1 Garage Door, and they average about 80,000 cycles. Now, once we go out to the ends of our tube, you're going to see 2 circular things. We like to say circular because we want to keep it simple for our clients when we point it out at first. We know these are called drums. So drums carry the cable, keep it organized as they wind and unwind. So drums hold on either end, and then on the outside of those are end bearing plates. So with the center bearing plate and the end bearing plate, that supports the whole torsion system. And they have bearings inside of them so it can rotate freely, so the drums, the spring, and as the cables pull up, everything's in unison and free rotation. So now we're going to start with the door. We're going to talk about the door body and everything that's fastened to it. We'll start with the panels. So first we have our top panel, which is a pan door, contractor grade, offers no insulation value, and it has short panel windows. The step above that, our second panel here, is a vinyl back door. So what that is a pan door with a polystyrene insert and a plastic vinyl backing to keep it in place. So the R value goes up a little bit, but it's essentially a pan door. Now a better step that we can go to is a steel back door. So we have our steel face front, we have a polystyrene, similar to up here, insert, and then a steel backing. Structural rigidity and R value is going up significantly with this. But the best that we have to offer is at the bottom here. This is a polyurethane door. So the reason that we can tell that this is polyurethane and this is polystyrene is we can always look at the end caps. If I look at the end cap on this one, I'm going to see a white styrofoam. If I look at the end cap on this one, I'm going to see a yellow spray insulation foam. This is how I know it's polyurethane. So this is the best R value that you can get in the door, and polyurethane is kind of like spray foam. So instead of just a styrofoam insert that they put in this one, this is injected into the door. It inflates, fills up all the nooks and crannies, so R value wise and structural rigidity, it's as good as you can get in the best that we offer. Alright, so now let's kind of talk about what gives the door structural rigidity other than the metal and the insulation value of it. So we can see that on our pan door and our vinyl back door we have stiles. So these are the vertical portions that provide structural support for the door. There are also points for fasteners to attach to. You can see them here, but because this has a steel back on our polystyrene and polyurethane, we don't know if they're there or not. Some polystyrene and polyurethane do have stiles that go all the way through, but some of them just have a metal plate that's only big enough for the hinge to attach to. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because we got to talk about our struts. So at the top of the door we have a strut. So this is a bracer that goes across the door, gives it a lot of structural rigidity. On this door, we have it at the very top because any door that has an overhead operator should have a top strut for support so the top panel doesn't buckle. Now with struts, you always want to put them at the top or over a hinge completely. On here we can see that we can kind of put a strut anywhere, but on a steel back door, we want to make sure that that strut is actually put into a plate that's going to fasten it. If we put the strut in the center of the door, it's just attached to a thin skin and you can rip it off at any time. Now besides the strut, for this top panel that I have support, we have what's called our ORB, or Operator Reinforcement Bracket. So this provides extra support for any type of bracket that holds the J-arm for the overhead operator. So what this is it goes under the strut, spans all the way down the stile, and actually attaches over the hinge down here. So instead of a tiny focal point, where there's a lot of pressure for that operator to pull on, it disperses all that out, so there's a lot less of a chance of doing any damage to the door from the operator. Now in the middle of the ORB, we can see that we have this little cable right here. This is called a vault lock, or an outside emergency release. This is for any door to where you don't have a man door or any other way to get into the garage besides the door. If an operator were to fail, then the door is locked and we can't get in. Well, this from the outside has a key to where I can pull on this cable, which is attached to a manual release, to where I can still have access to the door in case something will go wrong with the operator. Now down here you see that we have a T-lock. So T-locks are mostly designed for doors that are in manual use that you have to use by hand. So a T-lock has a handle on the outside that has key access that you can turn, and then we have a handle on the inside. As I pull on this cable is attached to flappers on either end of the door that will pull them open and closed. These flappers will integrate themselves into what's called a strike plate. So as soon as I close the door, the strike plates will engage and keep the door locked. Now, anytime that you install an operator, you want to take those strike plates and flip them around to make sure they don't engage again and overrun the operator and damage the door. So now we're going to talk about brackets and hinges. So we'll start at the bottom. So here at the bottom of the door, we have our bottom bracket. This holds two purposes. One, it's an attachment point for the cable, which lifts the door up and down, attached to the torsion system. And two, it holds the bottom roller. So bottom brackets holding the cable have to have red fasteners in them. Any type of door product that has a red fastener, nut, or bolt means that it's under tension and extremely dangerous to tamper with. So make sure we're educating our clients on this. Now, step up from that, we have our first hinge. So this is a number 1 hinge. It keeps the door together and pivots as it goes through the radius. On this hinge in particular, this is an 18 gauge hinge. It's easily identifiable because it's so thin, and then it also has ridges in it that are pressed in for structural rigidity. Now, a step above that, we have a number 2 and number 3 hinge. Works the same as a number 1, but these hinges, as the numbers go up, their spacing or grading is wider. The reason these hinges have to be wider as they go up is because track pulls away from a jamb to prevent any unnecessary rubbing against the frame. So when the door's in the down position and the track leans away, these rollers that have a wider spacing will keep the door nice and flush in the opening and have a really good seal. So here we have our top fixture. So this holds the top roller. It's triangular in shape and it has an adjustable slot that holds the roller. The reason being is because this roller sits in the radius, so the spacing is very wide. So we make the top fixtures adjustable so we can adjust them to keep the top panel nice and flush against the header, once again to keep that seal nice and close. Then we have our center hinges. So similar to the number 1, all center hinges that aren't on the outside of the door will be number 1 hinges. These don't have to hold spacing because they just hold the door together and have to pivot as the door goes through the radius. So now we're going to talk about rollers. So we have a wide range of rollers on this door. I'll start with the bottom. So this is a plastic nylon roller. This is the basic contractor grade, and essentially all it has is the roller stem, which goes through the hinge or bracket that's holding it, and then it just has a plastic wheel. This has no bearing inside of it. It's contractor grade. It's the most basic that you can get to get the door to work. These are very susceptible to extreme weather conditions, whether hot or cold over time, and usually they only last about a year or so before they need to be replaced. Now, a step up from that, we start with our metal roller. So here we have our stem again, and the wheel of it, instead of being plastic, is metal. This has an open bearing inside of it, to which any time that you have an open bearing, that means dust and debris can get in there and make that bearing start to seize up. Now the metal roller, although it would seem to be stronger, these break down very easily. So it's metal on metal in the track, which is a lot of unnecessary wear and tear and noise, but also the pressure of the door on the metal wheel puts a lot of pressure on the bearings, so these wear out very quickly. Now, a better step that we can do is we start to get into our nylon rollers. So this is a bearing nylon roller, but it has an open bearing. Just like I said before, anytime you have an open bearing, that means dust and debris can get inside and break down that bearing. But we do have a nylon wheel. So the nylon wheel is softer, much quieter, less pressure on the bearing, and it's about the mid-grade that you can get. Now, a step above that is a nylon capped roller. So what they've done is they've taken the nylon roller and they've put a black plastic cap on it. So this is what's going to start to keep all the dust and debris on the outside. But the best that you can absolutely do is the 6200 ZZ roller. We call them our Max Life rollers. They're usually in red, but they can come in different colors. And that's a factory sealed bearing. So instead of just a plastic cap that can break down over time, from the factory, these are sealed completely. So these are non-maintenance rollers. You don't have to lubricate them, you don't have to do anything, and these rollers will usually outlive the actual door itself. Alright, so now we're going to explain the track. So the track is mostly divided into two pieces. We have our vertical and we have our horizontal. We can tell the difference between the two from this splice right here. We're going to start with the vertical. So the vertical is what holds the door in the closed position flush against the opening. Now the vertical is held in place by two jam brackets on this door. We have one at the bottom and one at the top. So there's the small jam bracket and the large jam bracket because the track needs to lean away from the wall, so we have a bigger one so that spacing can pull the door away as it opens. Now at the top of the vertical track, we can see where it's married together to the horizontal track. This is called a flag bracket. So this also marries the vertical and horizontal track together to make it one, and also is support for the jam to where it goes up to the end bearing plates, which attaches to our torsion system. So basically it just holds the horizontal and verticals together and is structural support to the jam. Now the horizontal track, that's our top track to where the door transfers from the vertical closed position to the open horizontal position. In horizontal track, it has what's called a radius. So this is a curvature so the door can kick overhead. Radiuses can range. The most common that you'll deal with are 12 and 15. But that not only is the flag bracket supporting it, but at the back of the track we have back hangs. So this is usually made out of punch angle. So at the back of the track we'll have a nice triangular shape because the triangle is the strongest shape. And this is what holds and supports the track while the door is in the open position. Now where that back hang hangs onto the track, we have what's called a stop bolt. So the stop bolt goes into the inside of the track so the door doesn't fly out of the back of the track when people open it too aggressively. So here we have bottom rubber. So this is a type of rubber that's on the bottom of the door, so when it closes, the bottom of the door is completely sealed from any type of critters, bugs, and outside weather conditions, such as rain. Now bottom rubber comes in a lot of different styles, shapes, and sizes, but mostly bottom rubber comes in plastic clip-on, or bottom rubber will come with a retainer, which is a metal track that bolts itself to the bottom of the door, and then you just run the rubber weather stripping through it. Making sure these don't have any rot or compromise completely changes the effect of the R value of the door. The door could be 5 feet thick, but if I don't have it sealed all the way around the door on all four sides, R value doesn't mean anything. So here on this door we have our operator. Now instead of your traditional overhead operator with a rail and trolley and rail system that pulls the door up, this is a side mount or jack shaft system. The 8500W actually mounts to the torsion tube itself and rotates the torsion system, frees up a lot of space so we don't have to have anything overhead. Now in particular to this system, 8500W, W meaning Wi-Fi capable, so you can use LiftAsk or MyQ to control it from your phone anywhere in the world, but it also has a backup battery capability as well. So if the power were to go out, you would still be able to get the car out of the garage until the power comes back on, or a trained professional could come out and service it. Now in particular safety features to the jack shaft is one, we have a cable tension monitor. So since the jack shaft is directly tied into the tube, we want to make sure that there's proper cable tension so it doesn't throw a cable. So this cable tension monitor is an open switch and it's held open by cable tension. So if there wasn't any cable tension, that switch would close and it's an automatic kill switch for safety. Another really cool safety feature about the jack shaft operators is they have auto locks. So this is the LiftMaster auto lock It's placed right above a roller, and when the door closes, it'll automatically engage, so no one can lift the door up. And when you press for the door to open, the arm will retract back into it, making sure that the door can run up freely. So a very specific safety feature to the jack shaft is the auto light. So up here we have the 827LM, and because the jack shaft is located at the side of the garage, what they have is a light that you can mount overhead and give that same light quality as if you had an overhead operator. Now, in particular to the jack shaft, my cue will not work unless this light is installed. If it's not installed, you can still use remotes, you can still use a wall button, you can still use a keypad, but my cue will not work. The reason being is because that light has to be installed, so in case you control the garage from anywhere, the light will flash and grab people's attention to let them know to back away to safety because the door is about to go in motion. Another cool feature about the jack shaft is it has a smart LED wall station. So what's cool about this is it has an LED screen, and it tells you time, temperature, the backup battery status to tell you if it's charged. You can set it to time to close, vacation lock, you can set it to different languages, you can program remotes from here. It's a really cool tool, but probably my favorite part about it is if, let's say I had a safety eye obstruction. Well, the wall station is going to tell me exactly what's wrong with the door. So if it's something simple that a client can take care of, such as adjusting a safety eye, they'll know. But if it's something like an error code that they don't understand, they know to call a professional immediately. The jack shaft, like other models, does have a manual release just in case someone wants to operate it by hand. And then of course, like all other operators, due to 1993 when it was put into law, we have safety eyes. So at the bottom right here, safety eyes should be mounted anywhere from 2 to 6 inches, that's code. And with safety eyes, you have two different eyes. You have an amber eye, which is the sending eye of the imaginary beam, and then you have green, which is the receiving eye, which is telling you good to go. So if anything impedes the line in between these two eyes, the door will not go down. So this is a wonderful safety feature. Now, to make sure that we're aligned, you can see right now that we're solid green. So that means there's no impeding. But if I put my hand in front of it, it begins to flash. This is very good because the flashing light lets the client know that there's something wrong.